Today on I'll Have You Know.
We just need to look at this as what is the market signaling now? What do the businesses need? What do the people need? And then stand in that gap and provide that sort of product or service. And that's kind of how JPOC has evolved.
Jen Taylor Paquette says her career path before Rice Business was shaped by personal trauma in her family. She calls the program one of the best experiences of her life. Her work in nonprofit and with military families helped prepare her to help new business owners today.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm talking with Jen Taylor Paquette, Rice Business Executive MBA class of 2019, and you're joining us from San Antonio today. Thank you, Jen, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first, it's hard to believe probably that it's been, three years since you finished the program. I'm just a year ahead of me. And I'd just like to ask, what are you doing right now? What has life been like since leaving Rice Business?
Well, like a lot of people, after 2019, seemed like, oh, we'll just go back. We graduated, yay, all the things. And then COVID hit. So I had started my business and was transitioning out of another foundation that I had helped establish. And then 2020 happens. We move into a very hard time for the world. I kept my clients and I did not invoice them, which I could not do this in another time. I'll be honest with you. But I felt like it was the right thing, even for my mental health, to do it. I did want to help them because I'm like, everybody's in the same situation. I always said if I was in a position, I would continue on. And I did, and it paid off. We're just now getting better, getting our revenue up again. We're like, got an office and, again, and it's not as big, but it's perfect. The team gets stuff done. So that's what happened after I graduated. I guess we're all in it, so if I can do it, I'm going to do it. And I knew I would be taken care of. I will figure it out.
So your company is the JPAC Group. Can you tell us a little bit about what you specialize in?
Yeah, it's evolved over time and we've added things, added some like verticals, I guess you would call it. Really at first it was going to really just focus on PR, digital media. But as time has evolved, what we have actually turned into, which we do have that, and we do that. We specialize in startups, small to medium for-profits and nonprofits. These people, they're really good at what they do, like their craft, right? So they go off and they start a business or something happens. Generally, nonprofits start most of the time because of some kind of sadness or tragedy, right? And they're passionate about it and there's emotion and what have you, but they don't know about how to run a business. So what happens is they just think, okay, we got to hire W-2s. It's expensive to hire someone, especially if you want talent to grow, your organization. They can't do that. So they never even get off the ground. So what I offer is it's outsourcing, but it's fractional workforce. And we come in and we can handle board meetings. We do all the policies, everything, all of it. And I have a network that I've worked with for 20 years of these people that are vetted because unfortunately they've had to go through the fire with me. But we're able to do that because we have talent here and we can spread the expense across. We're on retainer and we can do this until they hit their milestone or we can keep going. It's helped these organizations, companies get to a place that they probably couldn't have gotten to otherwise because they're spending so much money on staff. They get a whole team for much less, right?
Right.
And the people here have, 150 years together in the experience, right? So that's what we specialize in. We have clients all the way from, like now I have a client that's an NFL. He used to be a quarterback and now he opened his own company and he's going to have a nonprofit together. That happens a lot. But we really want to manage burnout, because the world is full of burnout. We're just working and working and working. It's almost like a badge of honor. I've been in there 20 hours. Let me tell you, you know what that means? You don't know how to manage time or do your work. Okay. So we're going to come in and we're going to streamline you. Shouldn't even be touching some of this stuff because it should be automated. That's how it is evolved. We definitely do PR and we definitely do events. To me, that's more a lot of not PR so much, but the events and different things are more project management because they're one-off. Like that's a lot of times that's not going to be on retainer. So we do a lot of business development work for both for-profits and nonprofits.
And I would imagine if someone used your services, they are getting experience and expertise in all the different disciplines that they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise.
That's really what it is I observed that over my, oh my gosh, I'm so old, over my 30 years in business, reduce the risk too, the liability to your company by not hiring a W-2. If you can, there are times when it's time, and it's the best option. Like there's a lot of positive in doing it. And we're fine once if it's time, we do complete turnover jacket. So we streamline them. We make them run tighter. Let's just say that. And then they make the decision if they want to keep us going, and we decide if we have the bandwidth and we make sure the labor hours, we have that and what have you, balancing those things like burnout. I talk about burnout a lot because I know a lot of people, including myself, like I just, there is burnout, you're not effective anymore after a certain point. You have to take care of yourself.
It's very prevalent. Yes.
I mean, and people that really have high work ethic, they're high risk for it. It's not a badge. It's actually, you know what? You're a risk to the team. Me, that's how I am. I'm like, just keep going. You're not even doing anything at some point, because it's time to slow down a little bit. So those type of things, those softer things, the soft side of it, we focus on that too.
So take me back to when you decided to go to Rice Business and what that journey and decision-making was like.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I had a master's, but I'm like, I'm sure I need to pursue, I want to get an MBA. It was one of the best experiences. And it was hard because most of us all work at the same time, but it was hard in a sense that you're growing in your understanding and you're learning from these people that are they're super great professors, meaning that they know how to teach. Not everybody that is a professor can teach. You spend time with people, you get into arguments with people, and then you're like, sorry, I was just really tired. I shouldn't have acted like an idiot. So they become your family.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I've never been so like that proud of anything like I am at Rice since, I don't know, way back, Arizona State. But Rice is something that is one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this podcast. I will say it anytime. You get out of what you're comfortable in and you start moving again. And it actually helped me, not just academics, but just the interactions were a learning experience too.
Absolutely. Their experience and their ability to teach and make you think, force you to think.
Yeah, to really think. And then you're in your groups too. And I'm thinking, why did I get in here? Look at these people are so intelligent. I'm sitting next to a neurosurgeon. I'm like, what? What I noticed too, I'll be honest with you, is that people were humble. Harvey happened right when we started, Hurricane Harvey. But everybody just kind of locked arms, and that set the tone for our class. And I'm sure other classes are the same. So it was just good. It was great.
I think humble, and also I thought everyone was so supportive of one another.
Like, you need something? Okay.
Yes. And I don't know that I expected that.
Like just a great group of people that they put together.
We were talking before we started recording about your career path. You've worked in a lot of different areas, but you said there really was a moment in your personal life that sort of contributed to that. Can you take us back to that and and how it's shaped you and your path?
Yeah. My husband, he, after 9/11, we actually both worked at Intel at the time. And after 9/11, he decided to enlist and go through what is called the 18 X-ray program. It's a special program that you walk off the street, very, very difficult to become a special forces soldier. And he even went even more, like he became an 18 Delta, which is a medic, a special forces medic or Green Beret, right? To most people they think special forces, it includes SEALs and Rangers. That's special operations forces. That's the umbrella. There's only one special forces, and that's the Green Berets. During a deployment, he ended up getting hit by a IED and ended up losing both. We don't even like to say losing. Gave both of his legs above the knees. And before, I worked in corporate America. And then during this process, a year at Walter Reed, of course, my family came and stayed with my kids because we were in New Mexico. We didn't live near Walter Reed, okay? Oh, and we had an apartment at near Fort Bragg. But it was rough. So I'm thinking, okay, let's get the family back together. We head back to New Mexico. Well, in this process, one of the leadership at Special Operations Command tapped me to help start a new program for Special Operations Forces to support the wounded and their families. And I did that. And I was like, wow, I guess I didn't act too inappropriate at Walter Reed. Through that process, too, I found out that Green Berets, Special Forces, they don't have as much support because they're a Tier 2, I believe now, unit, meaning it's just a different mission, right? Tier 1 are like Rangers, Delta Force, SEALs. They go in, they have to be on the ground, and I might be wrong, but they have to be ready to go in 12 hours anywhere in the world. And Green Berets have longer missions. I always say they set up hospitals. They, do things like that. They do dental for the locals, those type of things. So there wasn't a lot of support, but they were experiencing the most casualties, the most killed in action, the most hurt, injured in Special Operations Forces. So I was like, where's a Green Beret organization? There's a Navy SEAL Foundation, which is awesome, and all these foundations, but where's the Green Berets? And so somehow I became part of the founding team to start the Green Beret Foundation, which, by the way, is an all-male unit. So it was a good experience. I met some of the best people in my life during that. I learned a lot about business, honestly, strangely. Been all over the country raising money and with ambassadors, senators, you name it, doing things that I never thought about that would be in my business and my professional life. Raised, I don't know, it was between 12 and 15 million. And it was a great experience. It was one of the harder things because nobody's coming to the Green Beret Foundation because it's a good time.
Right.
These are dark things. It's hard stuff. And it's not just injuries. It's things like PTSD with TBI, addiction. There's all kinds of things that go along with those things that are bad. And so that's how I ended up in the nonprofit arena. And during that time, we had what is called the transition program. And a lot of these guys want to start businesses and what have you. So I would help them with different aspects of it. And so we started several, and I can't even count how many, but also my husband has a couple businesses, one with augmented intelligence. And then another one is it's called Med Training Group. He is specialized in emergency medicine, but we help fire departments, police departments with emergency kits, and training.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more like part of our kind of like our mission, our personal mission is to help, where we can on that stuff. But then, during that time, I got exposed to all these other types of businesses from New York. I was in New York more than I was in Texas. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a fact. DC, Tampa, Colorado, but California. So I met a lot of people that had started businesses that were, I'm way out of my league, but I learned a lot from them, and I ended up starting my own firm. And a lot of it has evolved because of COVID and different things, and businesses change. And I'm not even going to focus on the negative. I can't. We just need to look at this as what is the market signaling now? What do the businesses need? What do the people need? And then stand in that gap and provide that product or service. And that's kind of how JPOC has evolved. And I actually thrive more when I see others doing what they want to do. You know, your dream. This is your dream. I get to be part of that behind the scenes. I get a personal satisfaction knowing that they are doing what they want to do. And I had a small part. And the whole team's like that. A lot of the team that was at Green Beret Foundation, GBF, have come with me over time. You know, at first they, some left, and then over time they came with me. So I still have this great team that has a heart for serving. And we just found a different way to do it now. We're still in those circles. We still do work with special operations forces and the nonprofits and what have you. But I just set a goal that I need to get outside of that small world, because there's so much that I can learn that I have cut myself off to, because you're just in your own echo chamber, right? You know, I can offer, but I noticed I did have to take a cool down period though, because I'm not talking to Green Berets all the time.
How do you think your nonprofit experience maybe uniquely positions you to work with business owners? Because your perspective is going to be a little different. And maybe some people might say, well, nonprofit versus a for-profit business is so different, but you had to have some learnings from that you think about all the time that you're able to apply.
Yeah, of course, there's differences in nonprofits and businesses. So if you have your LLC or whatever, you don't have a board. There's those things. Nonprofits are hard. They're gray. You're getting, you're always limited resources, and people are always wanting, and you're trying to do it. It's really hard not to get pulled into that. What I learned is there's commonalities that have to be addressed in both. Okay. I focus on efficiencies and effectiveness being in all operations. It doesn't matter. They're still businesses, both of them. And you're going to have more resources. Stop burning through that stuff, nonprofit or even small business. If you do things, why are you moving? Like every movement, my background is supply chain management and industrial engineering. Okay. I've always, that's the only reason probably, besides my husband's story, to raise money, but that's why the systems at the GBF and even other organizations that I consult for, hundreds, I'm like, why do you do it? Why are you moving your hand even? Why? You get paid $100,000 a year. Why are you doing it? I don't know. It's like what that movie, The Office or Office Space. He's like, well, I take the paper off the fax and I take it to the engineers. Why? I think we specialize in reducing risk, compliance, making sure we do everything that you don't need to do in-house, outsource the core competencies of your operations and your development, meaning anything that has to do with, in a nonprofit development stuff like digital media, any of that stuff, messaging, any of it. And go do what you do. You are out-facing. You shouldn't be in it. And it can go even to the board secretary, setting up board meetings, board reports and stuff. Why are you doing it? Well, I'm the secretary. You're the secretary, and you need to make sure it gets done appropriately. Okay, do you want to take those meeting minutes for the 1200th time and then you wait until the last minute because you have a full-time job? So nonprofit is a business. Obviously, a for-profit is a business. And efficiencies in it, which I'm referring to when I say efficiencies, using money wisely, especially in a nonprofit. It's not your money. You owe it to the public to do that. And then effectiveness, meaning productivity levels, like your utilization or whatever. You know, I don't want to get too mechanical about it, but why are you doing it?
And I think sometimes just going in and, you know, asking, why are you doing that? Because, and the answer might be, well, I don't know, because that's the way it's always been done, or that's how I was trained to do it.
I'm going to make some recommendations. You can take them or not. I don't tell people what to do, even with my coaching and what have you. I ask why and say, have you thought about these things? And, you know, of course, there's formalities of reports and different things like that. And two, what we try to do is give people grace too. People generally don't want to do a bad job. Give people a little grace. We need more grace in this world. So that's the way we approach it. Our culture, we generally, when we take on clients, we need to be aligned with the mission. Okay, let's just say you're not for, I don't know, it's a foundation that supports abortion or whatever. Okay, I'm just giving an example. If you don't believe in that, you know, that mission, you aren't going to do your best for them.
Right, right.
And we owe it to our potential clients. I always say, we're dating. Okay, we're going to date. You don't have to pay me anything. We're going to date for a little bit. You know, it's an interview for both sides, and people don't see that. They get desperate, and I understand why. You know, you need clients or what have you, and you need revenue streams.
You work with a lot of startups and new businesses. We've heard all about the Great Resignation and how many, you know, LLCs were formed during COVID. What's your perspective on all that, given your experience?
Well, I guess I would think, well, maybe people are pursuing their dreams now. Maybe they've always wanted to, you know, and it's time. Honestly, who tells us? Like, I'm thinking about the MBA program. You got to disrupt that market. You know, like it's time to shake it up, disrupt it. And what more of a disruption is that situation? And start really identifying gaps that can be filled, like true, needs in the market. Like, what is the market signaling to us, you know, out of this? Things did change.
Right.
You know, so I guess I do think people probably there are always people that are just doing it because they're like, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to do it. Those people might actually end up being successful too. They may have, if they didn't go through that, they may have never, you know, pursued that and never do what they want to do. But I think it's great if it's real, you know.
It will be interesting to see if, I guess, the pace of new business and people doing their own thing continues. You know, are we at the beginning of some kind of, you know, entrepreneurial age or something like that? Or, you know, will this be a blip where 2 to 3 years, you know, because of the pandemic, hoping that we're, you know, brighter days are ahead with the pandemic, that was kind of a phase where a lot of people made that jump. And then, you know, in time, maybe as many people may not take that risk.
And also, like, what types of folks were actually doing this? Like, oh, I got to get roundy about, so we got to get some variables and some, you know, like, let's do some statistics. But understanding, like, okay, there was a 5 million, whatever, were these folks that were about to do it anyway?
Right, right.
Or are they, you know, or do they have college educations? Do they have trades? Do they have, you know, like, or were they just bored or whatever, you know?
Right.
They're desperate. Like, people get desperate in those situations because there was a lot of lost jobs.
Yes.
You know, and they might get into something that well, I know I have. I'm like, what in the world? I never knew I was getting into this. What did I get myself into?
How many people actually quit or resigned or were forced out, lost their job? And then, like you said, you know, when sometimes if you have no other option, it's like, well, I've been wanting to start my own business. I've got to make some money and do it, you know, do it now.
So it would be interesting to understand, you know, the data behind it. Eventually, we're going to have to like ride this wave out a little bit, but to really understand it and have a good sample.
And now that you look back at your Rice experience and, you know, maybe when you started the fall of 2017, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
What would you tell yourself, your 2017 self now after going through the program, you know, having these experiences, going through a pandemic?
I would try to cut myself some slack. I was the person that sat in the back and tried not to get called on. I don't need anybody knowing that I'm ignorant. I can do that on my own. I don't need to be like raising my hand all the time. And I sat in the same chair. I'm a very habitual person. Okay. I eat the same thing every day. There it was sugar bacon, but I think I would say give myself some grace. Actually, we're just talking about grace. Just let up a little bit on yourself. You know, everybody's in it. We're all going through this together. It's different than everybody's in your job every day, right? So some things come easier for folks, and then they go into something else, and it's a hard class. You know, people are melting down in statistics.
So it's funny you said, take it a little bit lighter, because I talked to some people when I was first starting the program who had left the program, and they were kind of saying the same thing, like it's the network and have some fun, but when you've got homework to do, when you've got to get it done, you've got to get it done. But I think maybe I would tell myself, go with what you know and what your experiences are, and be okay with that.
Because people will learn from that.
Yes. Don't try to compare yourself to someone who has had a totally different experience going into the program. I've never been an accountant. I had never really worked at a corporate type role. So it was very different. Even just some terminology that anyone who's worked in a corporate position would know. It was foreign to me. Maybe just focus more on what I thought were my weaknesses were actually my strengths.
Yeah, actually, yes, that is. And that, I'm glad you brought that up. And I'll tell you what, to just kind of go off a dovetail on that, is that people were asking questions. I wouldn't do it because I'm like, I just don't know. I had this whole thing that I didn't want to reveal how stupid I am. And then later I'm thinking, it's not like I can hide it, if I, just sitting back here. But I actually admired them for doing it, just being straight. And also I was thinking, God, they did it because I didn't want it. But you know what I mean? I'm like, I like that. And that's the way it should be, especially in a learning environment like that. It was the best thing I've done for myself.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up on that note.
Thank you.
Jen Taylor Paquette, we want to thank you for joining us, Rice Business Executive Class of 2019. Good luck with your business. We look forward to hearing more stories about your growth and what you're doing after Rice.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been I'll Have You Know. Thanks for listening. You can find links and more information about our guests, hosts, and announcements on our website, business.rice.edu. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts, and leave us a comment while you're at it and let us know what you think. I'll Have You Know is a production of Rice Business and is sponsored by the Rice Business Alumni Board. The hosts of I'll Have You Know are myself, David Trugliever, and Christine Dobbin.